Hello, everybody. Good to have you all here with us. Welcome. Today is 28th of September 2022. It's 9 p.m. here in Ireland and in UK and 10 p.m. in France. So today's topic is forget the past. So we will see why in the reincarnatory process we have this glitch, let's say, to forget the past, forget what we have done in our previous life while we are incarnated. Okay, so let me put our video for today. Let me share my screen. Okay, there we go.
Caldini.
Yeah, just 1 second. You won't be able to listen them because I didn't proceed with the audio. There is no share audio. Okay. Let me know if you can hear the message.
No, we cannot.
Charles, no voice, isn't it?
No voice, no. No audio.
Yeah, let me see.
When we were talking about reincarnation, there's a question that always comes to people's mind. Okay, if we have different lives, why don't we remember who we were? That's a good question. What Spiritism says about it says we don't remember because it's on our own good not to remember. How come? Say, for example, that you remember that you were a king or a queen and you incarnate now in a very poor situation. How are you going to believe? You're going to demand a noble treatment because you are the king, you are the queen. So you don't remember, so you can face the new life almost from scratch. You start living that life as it should be. Or the other way around. Say you remember that your mother or your brother-in-law or your sister or your wife or husband have killed you in the past life. That happens. Or you were a slave of this person. How are you going to survive with this person? Would be very difficult because you would hate this person. So there's something that erases those memories from your life for a certain period of time while you reincarnated. So you can start the relationship from scratch. And it's quite normal that in our families, we are together with people that we had some problem in the past. It's easy to understand that. Just take a look at the history of humanity. If we were here in the Middle Ages, for example, even earlier, we were rapers, we were warriors, and during war, we killed people, we tortured people, we invaded nations, we separated families through slavery. All those kind of things happen in history. If we are reincarnated, we were the ones who did it. And so we come back together again, the same family with these people that we have tortured or raped or stealed something from them, to try to reconnect with them, to have a better relationship with them. And that's why also sometimes in your family, you have someone that you really don't like the person. Perhaps it's your brother. Why is that? Because maybe you have some feelings of the past. And these are the people you should work harder with. These are the people you should try to overcome that problem and become good friends. That's why we are reincarnating.
Okay, okie dokie. So it's always good to remember, or at least to see those videos. And Well, introduction, it's we can say, as we saw in the video, fortunately we don't remember what we were in our previous lives. Uh, and today's consequences we are having, it may happen from actions we did in the past. But this is an excuse we can use, because sometimes, and most of, I would say most of the times, this behavior, these sufferings we are having now, it's more towards our current actions. So we need to stop with those blaming the past, because it's easy blaming something you don't remember. It's easy you say, "Oh, I don't remember what I was some. That's why I'm suffering today." Yeah, but this is perhaps just 1% of the root cause of your suffering. The other 90% it is how you are acting today. Like in the video, like if you were a king or a queen in the past, and you were kind of that sovereign person, very rigid person, you are suffering the consequence today, but sometimes you didn't change your behavior. You are still treating people today as the same way you treat the people in the past. So it's always watch and learn. This is the most valuable advice we have in today's lesson, in today's discussion, which is watch and observe. Watch and be careful what are you doing. So, based on that, let's start with our friend Charles. And Charles, um, we we forget the past. This is something already is this is a fact. But can we consider this episode of forgetting the past an act of God's mercy towards ourselves?
Yes, thank you, Stevan, for your question. Also, hello to all the people who are with us today. You jumped the initial presentation, but no problem. Let's do it like
Oh
this.
yes, the
huh?
initial presentation.
And no, but no problem. Let's go. So it's a good question, Stephen. I sometimes, I mean, the video told almost everything already. Caldini is really summarizing a lot of good principles in such a short video. It's amazing. I used to tell that personally, when a lot of people say, "No, I would like to know what I was in the past," and so on and so on, and I always answer, personally, I don't want to know. For a very simple reason. We know that along the reincarnation, our spirit is evolving, getting a little bit better at each life. So the more we go back in our past lives, the less evolved we were, isn't it?
Hmm.
So really, I would not feel very comfortable to remember all the mistakes and the wrongs I have made along my lives. And this was perfectly illustrated by some good examples by Caldini in the video. And this is basically where God's mercy is. Some situation would really be unmanageable. A former king or important person reincarnating in a simple solution, simple situation, for instance, it would not be possible to live like this. Or husband and wife, or father, mother, and son, which were former enemies, and remembering, having in front of the eyes this remembrance of the wrong thing of the past, it would really not be fair. It would not be easy to live, to withstand such remembrance. And that is exactly where this divine mercy is. And well, we can also explain the forgetfulness of the past by this change of dimensions. We are here in the earthly dimension, then we go back to the spiritual dimension. So it's a different space-time dimension, which is the notion of time is not the same as here. So when we change from here to the spiritual world, or back from the spiritual world to here, there is a kind of disruption. And this, for the same reason, for instance, we not always do remember of our dreams. Or when we remember, it's very short and then we forget. But sometimes it has to be mentioned that there are spontaneous remembrance of the past. And this is basically the subject of study of researchers like Ian Stevenson from the university in US. And he found evidences of the reincarnation through young children who had remembrance of the past life, of things that they totally ignored in this life, and that could be verified as being true. A lot of information given being true. And this is impossible statistically, saying things by chance, to ascertain 10 or 20 or 30 detailed items correctly. The probability would be extremely low. And then he added to this also, for instance, the birthmarks. The way that the person died in the previous life, for instance, by some wounding, some injuries, are corresponding to birthmarks of the same person in the subsequent life. And this is all, I would say, these evidences about reincarnation. So we don't need also to have the remembrance of the past lives in order to see these evidences of the reincarnation. Okay. But sometimes spontaneously young children are remembering. So the forgetfulness of the past is not always systematic. In some cases, some persons, young or even older person, are remembering. But when this happens, it's always for a purpose. It's always for something which is planned, for helping in some way. And never for curiosity, or never also remembering very bad things who will then give us psychological problems in our current life. And that is exactly where this God's mercy lies. So there are other cases, these regression therapies, for instance, where some person has, for instance, claustrophobia in a life, and sometimes the fact to have this past life therapies is helping the person to overcome such phobias in the current life. But it needs to be done and managed by good professionals in the area. Because if you remember, for instance, in case of claustrophobia, you remember having died buried somehow. So, okay, what do you do with that? If you don't have the psychotherapy to help you in overcome this trauma and understanding that it was a past life, and disconnect the present life in order to solve the problem of the phobia, it can make even the things worse, So all this, I think, is illustrating why it is better for us not to remember the past life. And you told it also very clearly, Stevan, For instance, one could ask, okay, but I'm suffering in this life, it's terrible. How can I be responsible to suffer? It's unfair that I suffer and I don't remember why I suffer. Yeah? This is an argument that we often hear. And here the answer is as well the same. I mean, if you would remember why you suffer, you would have one more charge, one more problem to overcome. Okay, one more trauma, having this remembrance always. So if you are convinced that God is infinitely good, that His mercy is also infinite, you understand that if you suffer something today, if you have some illness or whatever today, it is not by lack of chance or by injustice. It is if we suffer something today, if the cause of this suffering is not in the current life, it must be somewhere in the past lives. So a lot of problems we have in our lives, and this happened also with me when you have, for instance, people who have a cancer or things like that, without having done something particularly, for instance, if you smoke or if you drink and you have a cancer, you understand why you have a cancer, because it's in this life. But sometimes you didn't do nothing wrong in this life, and even so you have a cancer. So then the thinking comes immediately by saying, okay, if I have a cancer today, it's just to purge or to clean some mistakes I have done in the past life, even if I don't remember. And the type of suffering we have, if we meditate, if we think about, we can easily, even by intuition or whatever, know the type of mistake we have done in the past in order to have today to overcome these consequences. Okay, so also in this case, the remembrance of the past life is not necessary, and even would bring more harm than help to overcome the illness with resignation, to accept it, and to do whatever we can in order to overcome it and overcome the illness. And there are even some persons, for instance, Dr. Paulo Cesar Fructuoso, a Brazilian doctor who wrote some books about ectoplasm and the medicine of the future through the inspiration and mediumship and so on. And when he asked, okay, but where does the cancer really come from, for instance? And his spiritual mentor said, please consider a cancer or a tumor like a vacuum cleaner of some illnesses of the soul. And it's also a very good image. And I told it, I think, last time or the time before. The case of a person who had a cancer. She tried everything to cure and at the end she died. And when she came to the spiritual world, she was received by her mentor, who was really with a very big smile saying, you see, your cancer has cured you, because what is important to cure is our soul. And if the body can serve to cure our soul through a cancer, let it be. It's like this. And let's then, once our soul and our perispirit is cured, come back, reincarnate again in a nice, young, healthy body, spiritual body. So seeing all this on this angle, clearly we can, to say, understand why it is not necessary most of the time, and even why it would be very difficult for us if we would have permanent remembrance of all the bad things we have done in the past. When we evolve, when you come to the good worlds, for instance, when we are elevated spirits, okay, we have made a lot of bad sins, but we have also repaired everything, wiped out everything, compensated all the bad things we have done by good and better things. So okay, so we as we remember from bad things from this life, once we have repaired it, the remembrance is not really a problem anymore. But as long as we did not reach that level of evolution, I maintain again, better not to remember from our past lives. And it's my case. I do not want to remember my past lives, at least in more details than I just get by intuition. So that is what I could say shortly on the subject. Let's see if we have then some questions to develop it more. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Stevan, for your question.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, and apologies for not for forgetting the introduction.
Most of the people, they know us already, so no problem.
Yeah, but people always loved our introduction. You speaking in French, Silvia speaking in Portuguese. So anyway, so Marco Davis, I will not read everything, but he made a good point here to us, in which he says sometimes when we travel to some place, and then when we arrive, we have the impression we know that we've been in that place before, and we can say yes, this is one of um, characteristics remember from the past. Yes, so if you never
Déjà
been in
vu.
that place, present life, but when you go to specifically and you say, okay, this is familiar, it is, that is a high chance, we cannot say 100%, but there is a high chance you already was there sometime. Also, Vladas, thank you for this. This is a very important topic. Thank you, Vladas.
So Marco is also saying, for instance, when we had friends in the past life, and we meet in the present life, and we don't know that we were friends, there will be some, how to say, natural spontaneous affinity, because even if
Yes.
we don't remember, we always bring with us this in the subconscient, hidden somewhere in ourselves, this remembrance, even if it's not in the wake state fully clear. So we have this immediate affinity with some person, and also it works the other way around. Someone is coming, and oh, this one I really don't feel him. I never met, but I don't feel it, and this also can be explained by this feelings and this soft remembrance of the past. So if we don't remember, but we still get it by intuition back as much as we need it.
Yes. Yes. Correct. Well said, Charles. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you don't do anything, and the person say, I don't like him. I don't like him. So anyway, so Miss Gibbons, you are so quiet today. Can you do your introduction, please?
I was listening. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's nice to be here again. And it started in this very important topic, actually. And it's always nice to be here. Boa noite, boa tarde a todos que estejam nos ouvindo. Um prazer estar aqui com vocês novamente, falando desse tópico importante. E realmente é sempre bom estarmos juntos, e que Deus nos abençoe a todos. Olha, said it.
Yeah. Okay. See?
Have you got a question for me then?
Yes, I do have a question for you. And my question for you, it's kind of we just said here, forgetting the past. help us to progress. It's a mercy of God, like Charlie said. But my point is, if I'm forgetting the past, it means I don't remember what I did in the previous life. Saying uh, this is a way to make us, how I say here, this is a way will make us do not be firm in our evolution. This will affect our evolution, not remember the past.
Okay. It's interesting that this question, because actually the Spirit's book has a question who actually just answers it. Very, very specific. And like everything in the Spirit's book, the questions that the Spirits answer are always precise and objective, and no room for interpretation, even though some people do that. I think this is a very, very important question, which a lot of people will ask. And it's important for us to know. So I just put my notes here, if you allow me. I'll just read through. Because one of the things actually that I thought was really interesting in the Spirit's book is that he says, we don't actually, there isn't a complete forgetfulness of the past. There is a veil which hides it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very, very important because we live very much in our past. And some people don't have a life here because their past is so completely take over, even though they don't know. But in answer to this, he says, we have the answer of this person. It's on my notes, though. A temporary forgetfulness of the faults we have committed is not an obstacle for the spirits to improvement. Not having a clear memory of the past, yet we have the knowledge that we had from the spiritual world, because when we were in the spirit, we had some knowledge of the things we had done. So, and he said, and we, on reincarnating, we had asked to redress the wrongs we had done. And he says this, and the Spirit says to us, and this intuition will guide us in resisting our bad tendencies. And I think this is very important because we have stored in our, in our very spirit and our spiritual being, everything we've done. And I think what the Spirit says to us here is that this intuition that we have of the past, that is the voice of our conscience. And we are helped by the spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels, because they also will give us some intuition and inspire us to do good, because we had asked to, when we reincarnated, we had asked for things. And said, if you really want to know who you were in the past, just look at yourself, your tendencies, the things you like, your desires, and your behavior. And I think, we don't need to go very far, but from ourselves. And he also says here that we always have a very vague consciousness of our past. And we just need to check our tendencies. So really, it is interesting this, because I heard plenty of people say, I must have been terrible in my past life because I find it very difficult to forgive people.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us must have heard someone saying something,
Yeah.
or something similar, and then we know somehow, because we haven't, and like Charles said, in the book says, it's a gift of God to forgive, because we tend to be reincarnate within the family group, within the group that we knew before. And many, many times we reincarnate with people that we're enemies with. And that would be hide in some ways, and also a sort of humiliation, because if we have someone in our lives now that we had harm in the past, we would feel very bad in meeting them, would, in a way, would be very difficult. But also, if someone we done something and the person will humiliate us. And I'll read something here from the Spirit's book, because this is very important. He says here, we don't remember because it's a gift, and also because it would be dazzled. There's so much information for us to cope, and would be make difficulties in the life that we have now. And he says, through the forgetfulness of the past, man is more fully himself. So in a way, it would be quite a burden to bring, even though we do bring it, but it's something unconscious. And we know I have a life to live. I have things I have to learn. I have to deal with this now. And it is a blessing, because, in the past, we may have being in a position that were superior or maybe inferior, and the difficulties. But we find, even within our own families, that some people in our own family, that we don't like them. We love them, but we don't like them. It's very, there is nothing about that person that you can connect with. Thank God I don't have this problem in my family. I love them all. I think we're all friends, but there are many people who have brothers or fathers. I know the situation that people really hated each other, although they loved each other, and it's very difficult. I remember someone saying to me, I love my daughter with all my heart, but I hate her. I can't stand her. And the funny thing was, the relationship, this little girl was the kindest, loveliest person you can imagine, especially to the mother. She would come and give her hugs and kisses, and you could see in the face of the mother the revulsion. And you could see that was a relationship in the family there that was, very, very difficult. And then, eventually she thought she had mental problems because of this feeling. And she went to doctors and all kind of stuff. But then she went to Spiritism, and she could understand then, reading and studying and people explaining to her, that made it easier for her to relate to her daughter. And now they're friends, they're grown up and they are friends. But, and I think this, if we knew what the relationship was, would be very difficult to do anything, if both of them could remember what it was. And I think, this example, I think, really shows us that not to remember it is very, very important, because they dealt, at least the mother dealt with, she was dealing with a little child, but she dealt with, the relationship got better. And now, she's grown up, she has a family of her own, and they are very close, even though, although they close and everything, there is always something. But it was sorted out. Imagine if they could remember what it was aversion to the past. And there are many relations, I think, in a way, who have this kind of difficulties within friends or family or something. So that's why it's so important, because then you can deal with the life in the here and now. And this is very, very important for us, I think, because the important thing to progress, and it's interesting as well to think about this, because in one of the things that they were quoting the Queen Elizabeth, who returned to the spiritual world recently. Such a great loss. But she was quoting, I think, when one of the trips she went to Australia, from an Aborigine saying that says, we come into this world to live, to observe, to learn, to love, to forgive, to love, and then return home. And it's very, very interesting, because if we think about it, it's exactly what we saying in Spiritism, to die, to reborn, and then once we learn, we go home. And I think having the burden of knowing, it can be very hard. But I think one point that Charles made as well, that is very important, that sometimes we do have difficulties, and we have fears, we have a problem with relationships, we have physical pain, that if you go to a past life therapy, can be solved, can be resolved, especially, and it is the way we bring some trauma that we, and I think one point that it's important, I think, to understand as well, is that when you go to past life therapy, and I know this because I am a past life therapist and have been for many years and worked in the field, it's not everything that comes, You don't remember suddenly all your lives at the same time. You will remember the lives that you have a problem with, or something that wasn't finished, or and this, because sometimes I'm curious to find past. That is always a little bit, but you find out sometimes things about yourself, things we've done, what happened. And it's very, very few people, and especially after some sessions, that the person will see, or maybe begin to see the bad they've done, because normally they go to lives that they were the victim, because it's easier to face, being that. And it's not to open up completely. It's the one, and you can sort it out, and you can, through the therapy, because it's a very deep and profound therapy, and you have a lot of help as well, I think, spiritual help that comes, and you can sort it out. And I find for myself, I used to have a physical pain of something that happened to me when I was a child, and I had it all my life. And then once I was doing my training in one of the things, I was working with my teacher, and I sorted out, and I never had that pain again. And then once I went into the session, I remembered it. I remember the accident that I had when I was a child, that I started to have the pain, and it's gone. So it does work. The therapy is very efficient. But I also think that being able to have this kind of therapy now is because we are beginning to now go into this world of regeneration, and we remember things from the past, and we clear it, not only for our own soul, for our own psyche, but we clear also, because it's very common that a lot of people in a group will have the same problems. So it's very, very important. But I think, the answers that they are here in the Spirit's book, please read it. And I'll tell you, it's from question 392 to 399, that gives a good explanation for that. And also in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, chapter 5, item 11, you find all the answers for that, which is, and it's a blessing not to know everything, but also I think we need to pay attention what we do, the tendencies we have, what kind of person we are, how do we behave, what kind of things do we like. And if we decide, because I think the important thing as well is that we have free will, we have choices. We don't need to live the tendencies of a past life. If we feel that say for instance, someone likes to drink a lot, maybe something from the past is a difficulty, and they can say, no, I'm not going to drink like that anymore, I'm going to change, or I'm going to work, I'm going to do something, I'm not going to be idle. It's always a choice to build a better life in the future. So I think that's it for now. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, Magia,
Yeah.
thank you. I was laughing here because Vladas put something here. Oh my gosh. This is something from the past, Vladas.
What?
Is the mother-in-law always a problem of the spiritual past?
No, 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 it isn't.
Yeah,
It's a lot of societal problems, I think, and because some people have very good, very loving mother-in-laws. I think this is very much, some people have, because some people do have. I actually knew someone who had a serious problem with a mother-in-law, but
yeah,
it was because her own thing. But the mother-in-law was very kind, was very loving, but they had a past, and we worked with that, and she cleared that as well. She found out what the problem was and sorted out, so they have a very good relationship now.
yeah. And Marco also put something here very interesting. Um, yeah, Marco. Perhaps, well, we never know. Marco is saying here, uh, spirit is today. Well, it's more related to the Inquisition in the past. Well, could be,
Where is it? I'm sorry, I cannot see it.
Yeah, it's. See, yes, clairvoyant generally said that. So we were
One
religious in a wrong way of history, like Inquisition, religion, war of 100 years. Now we became spiritualists to spread the key to understand the Bible by reincarnations, Allan Kardec philosophy spiritist book.
but one thing that it's if you discover very quickly when start studying and learning about working in therapy is that if you go to a psychic and they tell you, oh, you had this life and say you things, it's never the life the person bring when he's the patient. And it's very common said, oh, I went to that psychic and she told me I had this life. It never comes because sometimes people project. It's not the life.
Mhm.
When
What
people
they
come
want
as
to be,
patient,
yeah.
they will come to the things that they need to know. And I think that's when this veil that the spirits tells us about can be lifted for that thing to be sorted. And I think, psychs and everything, sometimes they project, sometimes because I have never found, and that was something we used to talk about. No one ever brought a life came forward when they came to work as a patient. That's something a psyche had told them. It's always their own. And I think is the veil that's lifted for that case in particular to be cleared, to be resolved, so the person can have an easier life.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
the interesting thing, sorry, just very quickly, sometimes a person will have a problem because, normally, if they have a problem, it's because they died in certain way. Yeah. But there is cases also that they have the problem because they killed someone in that way. And the trauma of that, once they realize what they've done, they assume the pain that the person felt. Don't know if it's clear.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So also Luciana Tezin, she's put it here. Family is our first school on this life. Relationship is difficult aspect around the world. Yes,
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly. The family is where we live, where we learn to be brothers, one to another. And it's a kind of reduced model that with the time is expanding to the whole society. And family is really okay. There are also God's mercy with maternal instinct, paternal instinct, and this care that the parents are giving to the young child, and so on. And even if it was an enemy, the instinct is overcoming that problem. And really, when they later on they see, oh, it was my enemy, but he took so good care of me when I was young, and so on. You can imagine how such type of things help to forgive, help to reconciliate, help to repair the problems. No? Whilst if you would have the memory, it would be much, much, much more difficult.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
And this
and
is
I
this is in the family. Yeah? So
exactly. And I think another thing, Charles, is that usually for quite a lot of us, we choose to be born on that family.
yes,
We are not forced to. We
no,
ask to sometimes.
yes.
So,
And there
and
is an
we
agreement of the parents as well.
Yeah.
exactly, yes,
Yeah, but
yes.
in the spiritual world,
Is
this
in
is
the
why
spiritual world,
also
yeah.
when we during a sleep, we cannot remember such dream. Otherwise, we would remember things that is not good for us to remember.
Yeah. And I think this agreement is even before the parents are born. So it's in the spiritual
Sometimes
world
yes,
for
yeah,
quite a
yeah. It's
long time.
planned upfront. Yeah. Mhm.
They will accept to be your parent. So they're going to be born and they're going to be your parent.
It
So it,
depends. It depends on the intermission time, how long you stay in the spiritual world
yes,
before coming back. So if it's a short time, if the parents are coming back before the son is going back to the spiritual world, then it has to be during the dream.
yes, because I mean, especially in a situation when they have some unfinished business to resolve, some question of that was very strong, very difficult in the past. This is agreed long before, and I think if anybody has read that book, Missionaries of Light, Chico Xavier, the third book of the André Luiz collection in Spiritual World, there is a reincarnation of the man Sigismundo, and he explains really well that they were friends, but they became enemies, and they regretted, and how difficult, even though the father had actually accepted to be the father, how difficult it was for him to accept. So it's so precious. And I think if anyone has a real problem with someone in the family or something, they really should stop and try to as much as possible to see the good side of that person, the member of their family, and try to understand them, because I think we all, in one way or another, we are all fighting some things from our past. And we, oh, that person is not so nice, but then try to be nicer. I think this is very important. And that's why you reincarnate in a family with people that maybe are difficult. If we know better, then it's asked of us that we should give more, try to understand, try to see the positive side of that person. And I think life will become a little easier for everyone. Because sometimes you have more friends that you love, don't you? I mean, you meet a person for the first day and it's like you know them all your life. It's such a lovely feeling that. And you become so close because you already, I know that we have the thing about the sympathetic spirits, that you have the same. But some people, we seem to know them and we seem to really care for them. There is that wonderful feeling of closeness with that person. But would you allow me to tell a little story of my own,
Yes,
very
of course.
briefly?
Yeah, we have time.
Um, when I first came to England, I decided to go and live in Italy for a while. So I went to Italy and stayed with some friends, had a great holiday there. I was there for 2 months. And I decided, oh, I'm going to stay here to learn a little Italian. So anyway, I got a job as an au pair that you could do in those days. And so I was in Rome and I was going to meet this family, but they were in the seaside in Ostia. And the lady came to pick me up at the station. And the station in Ostia was a holiday, was full of people, full of people. And from far away in the station, when I got off from the train, I looked and I saw this lady, and she had her back to me. And she was very well dressed and everything, and her bag on the side. I can see it. And then I thought, if it's that woman, I am not going to stay. And of course, as soon as she turned, she came straight at me, and I wanted to go back to the train. I took my suitcase, and it was so weird. Anyway, so eventually I said, no, maybe it's not her, but it was her. And I went to that, but I couldn't stay there. And I said to her, I'm sorry, I'm not going to stay. I'm going back. So I phoned my friends in Rome. I said, I'm coming back. The day before. But I didn't eat anything in the house. I couldn't eat anything. That she made dinner, so I'm not hungry. And it was so weird. 6 o'clock in the morning, I got up and I went back. And now I just couldn't stay with her. I just couldn't say a minute. And she was so nice to me, she was so kind and everything. And she could even understand English quite well. But I think now, looking back on that, since I learned about Spiritism, I think I missed an opportunity, because that must have been a person I had problems with in my past life. Definitely was, because the feeling was so strong, And I think, if you think about it, all of us at one time or another in our lives have had some feelings like that with people. So really needed to use the opportunity to sort it out. So you don't have to meet them again.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
We rather solve the problem as soon as possible, no? Not
Exactly,
procrastinating. No?
Exactly.
Yeah. We have to face like all the challenges we have in our present life. It isn't one way to sort it out. Let's say past problems and current problems, So we need to face whatever situation we need to face, move on, and practice everything what we have learned in these spiritist teachings.
Exactly. Because, nowadays, sometimes when I remember her, I pray for her, because at that time I didn't know any better. I just knew that I had to get away from her, to be away somewhere else. But now, I pray for her because I miss a good opportunity. But, God willing, if I done anything, I hope she has forgiven me. And I pray for her anyway. So, and if this is within your own family, I think it's very important to be aware and to really, pray for the person and try to see the good sides of them and everything,
Yeah. Okay. Let me share our announcements. Let me put it here. So, for next week, we're still confirming something. We don't have the main topic for next week, but don't miss. We'll be here next week, 9 p.m. We will let you know what's the next topic. Okay. So time to talk. We had this Tuesday, so the next one is in 1 week. Okay. On Saturdays, we do have our the Mediums book online course. The facilitators are Charles, Munir Gariba, and Guilherme Dias. Study of the book Nosso Lar every other Tuesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Every Wednesday, we do have a coffee break with Kardec, in which Munir gives us beautiful insights from Genesis, and it's a high point for our coffee break. And also, if you want to help two institutions in Brazil, we recommend you go to www.kardec.org.uk/high five, and there you're going to have two institutions, Grupo Sheila and Mutirão. So, and they need your help. And this is it. This is it. So I want to say thank you all of you for your inputs. Thank you for the participation, Marcos, Luciana, Vladas. Thank you for be here with us and give your time to listen us. Thank you very much. And also, I want to say thank you to my friend Charles and my friend Silvia.
Merci. Thank you all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a lovely
Thank you.
week. God bless. Bye.